I want to start with something uncomfortable. Last week, I caught myself 40 minutes into scrolling reels I had planned to read. I knew I was doing it. I kept doing it anyway. And I'm someone who thinks about this stuff for a living. That's not a confession of weakness. That's the whole problem in one example. You can understand exactly what's happening to you and still not be able to stop. And if that sounds familiar, this video is for you. Because the reason you keep failing to quit isn't lack of willpower. It's not weak character. It's that the thing you're fighting was specifically designed to be unfightable with the tools most people bring to it. What we're going to do today is not fix a defective machine. We're going to re-architect a biological legacy and build something your ancient brain never anticipated: genuine, durable freedom. Your brain was built for a world that no longer exists. For 300,000 years, pleasure was rare and required effort. Food meant hunting. Connection required trust built over years. Your brain evolved to release dopamine not as a signal of pleasure, but as a signal of survival relevance, a marker that said, "This matters, remember it, do it again." The system worked. Then, within a single generation, the entire reward landscape of human life was industrialized. Pornography, alcohol, social media platforms, engineered by behavioral neuroscientists working around the clock to maximize the intensity of your dopamine response. Your ancient brain encountered these things and did exactly what it was designed to do. It learned, it adapted. It said, "This is the highest value signal I have ever received. Prioritize it above everything else." That adaptation is the trap, not a character flaw, not a spiritual deficiency, a sophisticated biological mechanism being exploited by forces with enormous financial incentives to keep you in it. Understanding that changes something. Here's what's actually happening inside your brain. When you engage with an addictive substance or behavior, dopamine floods your reward center. The spike is artificial in its intensity. Your brain registers it as extraordinary. It begins restructuring itself around this signal. But after every artificial spike, your brain drops below its natural baseline, not back to normal, below it. This is the dopamine deficit state. And this is where the addiction actually lives. In the deficit, you feel a specific kind of emptiness, not sadness exactly, more like grayness, motivational flatness. Nothing feels quite worth doing, and your brain, which hates discomfort, immediately searches for the fastest route back to neutral. The fastest route is the same behavior that created the deficit. So you return. The spike comes, the deficit follows, a little deeper this time. The receptors down-regulate. The brain literally reduces the number available because it's learned to expect an artificial flood. You need more stimulus to feel the same effect. The threshold for ordinary pleasure rises. This is why the heavy drinker finds a quiet evening genuinely unpleasant rather than peaceful. Why the social media addict experiences a book as unbearable, not because books are boring, but because the brain has been calibrated to a stimulus level that books cannot match. The loop isn't a habit, it's a reconfiguration of your neural architecture. And here's where it gets genuinely hopeful. The brain is plastic. It changed in one direction. It can change back. The brain generates new neurons throughout your life, neurogenesis. Addictive behavior suppresses this process. Recovery, exercise, sleep, meaningful engagement actively promotes it. You are not just changing habits when you break an addiction, you are literally building new brain. If this is landing, subscribe. There's more coming that connects to exactly what we're building toward here. But first, let's get into what actually works. There's a concept in neuroscience called dopamine fasting, not eliminating pleasure, a deliberate reduction in high stimulation inputs to allow your baseline sensitivity to recover. Think of it this way. If you've lived in a room with music at full volume for years, silence doesn't feel peaceful. It feels threatening. Your nervous system has calibrated to the noise. The only way to recover sensitivity to quiet is to spend time in it, uncomfortably at first, genuinely restoratively over time. When you remove high-intensity artificial stimulation for long enough, ordinary experiences begin to register again. A conversation becomes genuinely interesting. A morning without an agenda becomes peaceful rather than unbearable. This is the neurological foundation. Without it, every other strategy is fighting uphill. But recalibrating the system is half the work. The other half is redesigning the environment the system operates in. Most addiction conversations treat the problem as internal. Fix your mindset, build your motivation. But your behavior doesn't happen in your mind. It happens in a physical environment, one that was designed by someone, whether you chose it consciously or not. Every time you reach for your phone at 11 p.m., you're not making a free choice. You're responding to an environment architected to produce that response. Remove the bottle from the house. Put the phone in a different room. Make the old behavior physically inconvenient and the new behavior physically easy. The research on this is unambiguous. Friction works. Every additional step between you and an addictive behavior reduces its occurrence. You are not fighting yourself. You are re-architecting the field on which the fight happens. There's something else worth understanding about modern addiction that almost nobody names directly. You are not addicted in isolation. The products you're dependent on are actively maintained by billions of dollars and thousands of engineers whose entire professional purpose is to capture and hold your attention. You are participating in a collective pattern, a shared field that feeds on engagement and grows stronger with every user who stays in it. This reframe matters because it changes the emotional register of quitting. Instead of, "I'm trying to fix my weakness," the story becomes, "I'm reclaiming attention that was systematically extracted from me." That's a different kind of motivation, and it's the accurate one. Now we reach the part most people never get to. Behavior change at the habit level is unstable. You can build the right environment, recalibrate your dopamine system, reduce stimulation, and still relapse, because the behavior is downstream of something deeper: identity. People don't act based on what they want to do. They act based on who they believe they are. A person who identifies as someone trying to quit drinking is still, at the identity level, a drinker resisting their nature. Every sober day is a battle fought against the self, and eventually the battle exhausts you. A person who genuinely no longer identifies as a drinker doesn't fight. There's nothing to resist. The path from one to the other is not waiting until you feel different. It's acting differently until you feel it. Ask yourself not how do I stop doing this, but who is the person who naturally doesn't do this, and what else is true about them. Build that person in detail, their morning, their relationships, what they protect their attention for, how they respond to stress. Then begin living as that person in every decision you can right now before it feels authentic. The brain is a prediction machine. Give it repeated experience of being the person you're becoming, and it builds the model of that person. That model becomes your identity. And underneath identity, one thing more fundamental: self-agency. The sense that you are the author of your choices, that your life is the result of decisions you made. Addiction is, at its core, an erosion of self-agency, the experience of watching yourself do the thing you decided not to do, of being a passenger in your own life. The recovery of self-agency, not just sobriety, but the genuine experience of authorship, is what people who have broken serious addictions consistently describe as the most significant part, not the absence of the substance, the presence of themselves. Now, the thing underneath. Most addictions are not really about the substance, they're about pain that has no other outlet. People don't drink because they love alcohol. They drink because something inside them is unbearable, and alcohol makes it temporarily bearable. If you treat the behavior without treating the pain underneath it, you have a near certain chance of relapse, not because you failed, because you solved the symptom and left the cause intact. This is where the real work is, not the dramatic "I'm quitting" moment. The real work is asking honestly, what am I avoiding by doing this? What would I have to feel if I stopped? Write about it. The emotions lose power when they're named. They gain power when they're suppressed and managed chemically. And if what you find is genuinely significant, trauma, chronic depression, anxiety that was there long before the addiction, working with a professional isn't weakness, it's what self-agency looks like in practice. Cravings will return, even with the right identity and environment. Here's what to understand. A craving is not a command, it's a wave. It rises, peaks, and if you don't act on it, it subsides, every time, without exception. The game in that window is not to fight it. Fighting it energizes it. The game is to move through it without acting. Change your physical state immediately, not your thoughts, your body. A cold shower, a walk, 20 push-ups. You are not reasoning your way out of a dopamine loop. You are interrupting it physiologically. And have a specific, concrete alternative behavior ready in advance, not a vague intention, a specific action. In a high craving state, your decision-making is genuinely impaired. The decision needs to be already made. You will slip at some point, almost certainly. The most destructive response is the shame spiral. The story that a slip means you're back to zero, that you've confirmed you can't do this. That story is not only factually wrong, it's neurologically dangerous. Shame is precisely the emotional state that addiction has historically medicated. Shame loops back into the behavior. Treat every slip as data. What was the trigger? What emotional state preceded it? What conditions were present? Every slip, analyzed honestly, reveals something specific about the architecture of your particular addiction. That intelligence makes you more capable, not less. Progress in this domain is not a straight line. The direction matters more than the consistency. Here's what I want you to hold. Every day you choose the new pattern, you are building neural architecture, generating new neurons in a brain that is literally rewiring itself around your choices. The deepest truth about addiction, the one that the shame narrative obscures, is that the version of you that is free was always there. It didn't disappear when the addiction arrived. It was layered over, managed out, given no oxygen. What recovery reveals is not a new self. It's the self that was there before the architecture of avoidance was built on top of it. That person doesn't need to be created. They need to be uncovered. If this shifted something, subscribe.
The next video might land at exactly the moment you need it. Tell me in the comments, what is the pattern you're working to break right now? And what has it been doing for you that you haven't fully named it yet? That question is where the real work begins. I read every comment. See you next time.